According to a new poll from CNN, a majority of Americans want to see a verdict in the January 6th case before they vote in the election, because it's vitally important that we find out whether the former president did what we all saw him do on television or not.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, February 7th. Jonathan Lemire is still with us, and joining the conversation we have MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, NBC News and MSNBC political analyst, former U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill. She and Jen Palmieri are co-hosts of the MSNBC podcast, How to Win 2024. Also with us, former Republican Congressman Carlos Scarborough of Florida. He's an NBC News and MSNBC political contributor.
We're halfway through the week. I just have to ask,
what?
Claire McCaskill, how are you holding up?
Is Claire okay?
Well, I mean, the Chiefs, the Chiefs this weekend.
I got my red on.
Yeah.
You got your red on.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be okay.
How you feeling?
I feel pretty good. I mean, we got a little drama with the Tony situation, and but it really feels like we are still the underdog, and that is a good thing. We are playing lights out when we're the underdog. We did in both of the games leading up to the Super Bowl, and ultimately, I have my faith in our defense and the unbelievably effective Andy Reid under pressure.
Yeah, what is the Tony situation?
Well, he was supposedly hurt, and then he said he wasn't hurt. He kind of lashed out on social media, and so now there's a little drama over there about that. And McKinnon is questionable whether first they said he might be back, and now they're saying he won't. But all in all, we are pretty healthy and ready.
She is following every detail of this.
Willie, Claire's in the weeds on this.
She hasn't mentioned
I'm
Taylor.
just I'm talking about Taylor and Kelsey and everything.
Well,
I saw this thing.
We're all going to watch because of Taylor.
I just got to say it, Willie. I wasn't going to say it. I was watching yesterday. Mika keeps cable news on 24 hours a day, it seems.
My background noise. I also like to see,
makes me nervous.
Lies.
But anyway, I'm walking through a room, and a guy's explaining why he can't vote for Donald Trump after supporting Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020.
Yes. Right? Yeah, this was fascinating. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Go
on.
For what? You keep
have this story now. This is so good.
All day?
Go ahead.
Oh. So anyway, the guy talks about Taylor Swift and Kelsey. Willie.
Yep.
And we lost Willie there.
Yeah.
I lost him.
No, I was looking at prop bets about Taylor Swift on DraftKings. But
okay. Fair enough.
So what did he say, Joe?
This guy tells a reporter.
Yes, swear to God he did.
In South Carolina.
Yes.
That after voting for Trump in 16, and after voting for Trump in 20, and after wanting to vote for Trump in 2024 in the South Carolina primary, he just can't do it because during the Super Bowl week, Donald Trump has been critical of Taylor Swift. And he says, and I quote, my daughter likes Taylor Swift, and I'm just sitting there thinking, what am I going to say to my daughter when she comes home?
You're going to say you didn't
And I'm
vote for
thinking, okay, like, Taylor Swift, okay, what about the Access Hollywood tape? What am I going to say to my daughter when she comes home? What about how horribly he treats Swift? How about the sexual, abuse verdict? How about a judge saying he's a rape? No, none of those things made the guy go,
can't do it.
How could I tell my daughter that I voted for a guy that the judge said was a rapist? Was a rapist, and a jury of his peers hit him for almost $90 million because he kept attacking the woman the judge said he raped. But no, that wasn't it. It was that Donald Trump was mean to Tay-Tay. It's a little much.
I gotta start watching these shows you guys watch. That sounds exciting. Yeah,
it's cable news.
Cable news.
Like us. As Madge would say, when your hands were soaking in Palmolive, you're soaking in it right now, Willie. You're in cable news.
Well, I'm in it. I'm not looking back at it, luckily. But
remember those Madge commercials?
I do.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It is. I think the anti-Taylor Swift thing is obviously so dumb and so misguided. Right on par with Ron DeSantis taking on Disney in his own state. Let's take on these beloved institutions, start a fight with them. But yeah, I mean, I as you were talking about what he was going to say to his daughter, I had the exact same thought as you were saying it, which is this is the thing that broke, that you're going to have to explain to your daughter, and not the last, 10 years of things that have accumulated. Jonathan Lemire?
I mean, this seems to be evidence of the strength of the NFL, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce conspiracy theory. They're right. Look at this.
Yes, there you go.
They were right.
Okay.
This was a plant. The whole year was rigged to turn voters one by one, starting with this gentleman in South Carolina, Mike.
We should stop trying to, over-investigate or over-analyze this. Just accept any and all slow awakenings that anybody out there has in the country.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. No, I always say, Mike.
And thank Taylor.
We're always open to conversions. Mike, I do wonder, though, do you think the deep state, the next sports franchise they decide to get involved in for a conspiracy theory to toss an election, do you think the deep state could look, I don't know, toward Yawkey Way and maybe get involved in conspiring to make the Boston Red Sox spend more than $15 and 2 proof of purchase seals on their starting pitcher?
We're beyond the CIA's help.
No, that's they are bigger than anything you can think of. They are bigger than any conspiracy that you could ever dream up of. At 4 Yawkey Way, the Fenway Sports Group, they're putting together a formidable series of assets that are going to require maybe several months for the Red Sox to be as competitive as we want them to be. But they will get there. They will get there.
They are putting together, Jonathan Lemire, a formidable, whatever he said, of assets that exclude the crown jewel, right? We're going to buy. Let's buy the PGA. All right, we don't have money for the Red Sox. Let's buy the Penguins. We don't have money for the Red Sox. Let's buy. That building over there is bright and shiny.
What are you even
Let's
talking
buy
about?
that. We're not going to buy. No, but the thing is, we were fed. Boston Red Sox fans were fed the lie that they lost $40 million last year on the Red Sox, so they can't afford to spend any money on having pitchers that go past 2.5 innings. The fact is, they're shelling out how many hundreds of millions of dollars for the PGA. And again, once again, the Red Sox, I'm sorry, I can't remember. How many times have they finished in last place over the last 4 years, Jonathan?
I believe it's 4 out of 5 seasons.
4 out of 5 times they've been in last place.
That's how many World Series rings we have, too.
To be sure, but those 5, they all came before those 5 seasons, unfortunately.
Oh my God, Mike, you're sounding like a Yankees fan. Yeah, but we used to win World Series. We used to win World Series.
All in one century.
We want to win World Series this year, Lemire.
Yeah, we're
I
not
don't
going
care
to.
about 2018. Donald Trump was president in 2018, Lemire.
I've heard that.
It's a little early.
Yeah, it is.
Like this.
No, it's never too early to be angry about the Red Sox.
Yeah, no, it's always appropriately timed to be angry about the Red Sox. Yeah, they haven't spent. We've documented it, and no one's taking away what this ownership group has done to this for this team. That I would have traded anything for 1 World Series they've given us 4. That said, this is a fan base that cares. They live and die every single day, Mike. You know that better than anybody. And it's hard to see a team seemingly without a clear plan, without real messaging concern issues here as to what exactly they're doing.
They have a clear plan. It's just that you don't like the plan.
Well, what is the plan then? The plan is to not spend money.
The plan is to lose.
Oh, speaking of, perfect segue.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Mika. I just have
to our top story.
Breaking news: Fenway Sports Group now buying Australian rules football.
Okay.
Way to go. You know, Carlos, you're related to Mike Lowell. Like, let's get a Mike Lowell in there. Come on, man.
We like Mike Lowell.
Listen, Joe, anytime you're with me, you can relive the glory days. You don't have to be so angry. Think back at 07, Mike Lowell, World Series MVP. They swept Colorado. I mean, let's get happy here.
Well,
Joe,
that's a good idea.
We Yankee fans, by the way, would like to thank the deep state for sending us Juan Soto in this offseason. The hand, right, the silent nudge of the deep state pushing the Yankees hopefully up the AL East standings, maybe even to like 3rd place this year.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, at one point in this ridiculous conversation, someone said liking to lose. Speaking of, an embarrassing blow to House Republicans and Speaker Mike Johnson. The effort to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has failed.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It went right past me when it happened.
Yeah.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the details.
Drama on the House floor. Republicans narrowly failing to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. A big defeat after the House Speaker laid out the case against the Biden cabinet secretary.
I don't believe there's ever been a cabinet secretary who was so blatantly, openly, willfully, and without remorse did exactly the opposite of what the federal law requires him to do.
Accusing him of allowing millions of migrants to cross into the U.S., though at least 2 Republicans joining Democrats opposing it.
It lowers the grounds of impeachment to a point where we can expect it to be leveled against every conservative Supreme Court justice, every future Republican president and cabinet member, the moment the Democrats take control.
Conviction, which requires 2/3 of a Senate majority, would be unlikely. It comes at the same time we've learned congressional Republicans have effectively killed the $118 billion bipartisan security funding package that included new measures to beef up border security. GOP critics say that it's not tough enough to solve the migrant crisis. But President Biden placed the blame squarely on opposition from former President Trump.
Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends.
While Republicans argue it's Democrats who are playing politics.
The objective of this bill was, number one, to do nothing, so to do zero to secure the border, but to let every Democrat running for office say, gosh, I wanted to secure the border, but those mean Republicans wouldn't let us.
Senate Democrats telling us they'll still hold a vote on the bill.
What extraordinarily bad faith on the Republicans. I'm sorry, I can't go past that.
Just not honest.
That press conference. They're just lying
every level.
through their teeth. I mean, Mike Lee putting out a statement talking about how horrible this bill is. They didn't even read the bill. And if you read the bill,
it has a 19-page summary. If you don't have time,
if they don't have time to do it,
370 pages.
It's a James Lankford bill that goes bit by, and I'm wondering,
I think
do those guys are those guys really saying that James Lankford is a lefty? It's just not true. They're lying through their teeth, all because they're subservient to Donald Trump and not the people of their states. They want to be a representative of one. They want to be a representative of Donald Trump. And so the hell with the people of their states who want the border closed.
So here's how we know this was never about securing the border for the Republicans. The Border Patrol Union, which endorsed Donald Trump in both 2016 and 2020, came out this week in support of the border deal. Yesterday, we heard from the group's president on Fox News, even as Republican House leadership continued to dismiss the union's backing of the bill.
I understand politics, and I can understand why Republicans would go against this for political purposes. I get that. There is that aspect to it. This bill transcends administrations. This will go beyond Biden. It will go beyond Trump. It will go beyond the next president. So I'm looking at this from the standpoint of we need something that is going to continue to go past and not just executive orders. There are plenty of weaknesses in here, but there's also a lot of strengths. And when you look right now what we're currently dealing with, this is a slow month, and we're dealing with 6,700 apprehensions on a daily basis. What this would do is it would cap it to where we couldn't take anything more than 5,000. Now, this does not say that we're going to release 5,000 people into the United States. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It says that we will hold single adults in custody. They will not be subject to release.
I know a lot of Republicans are against it because Donald Trump is against it. But here's the problem for you guys. The Border Patrol Union came out and the acting CBP chief both came out and said it's not perfect, but this is the best thing we've seen in decades. So are Republicans going to say that the Border Patrol Union and the acting CBP chief are wrong?
Well, look, they can have their perspective, Steve, and we've got a lot of respect.
It's their jobs, Tom.
And it's our job to actually make sure the laws will accomplish what we're seeking to do.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I guess it's not unbelievable. I'm sorry, this is not unbelievable. That this bill was moving toward passage, and then Donald Trump said, kill it, because it will make the situation better at the southern border. And that might hurt me politically. Just like Donald Trump said he wanted America to be plunged into a Great Depression. So now we find out, after all these years, I mean, I got to say, this is so foreign to me. This would never have happened to the people that I served with in Congress. It just would have never happened. Like, if there was something important for the country and people came around, Tom DeLay came around whipping it for the other side or whoever came, and they were pressured, but tell them to go to hell. We'd say, no, we're back off. We're going to vote for this bill because it's good for America. We don't care if it's not good for the Republican Party or the Republican leadership. Claire McCaskill, you would think of all the issues, the border issue would be the one issue that if the Republicans were going to grow a spine, they'd grow a spine on, especially when you have the men and women who are fighting every day at the border to bring order to this chaos and this humanitarian disaster. When their union says, we need this bill passed, Republicans, please pass this bill. It's the toughest bill we have seen in decades. And yet they still cynically say no and then tell the Border Patrol to go to hell.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. They do not want to address a crisis. And by the way, this all happened because they insisted. This is their bill. And the way they're hanging Jim Langford out to dry is unbelievable to me. They all work with him. They know how conservative he is. We've got the Wall Street Journal and the Border Patrol Union both saying, take this bill, help fix this problem. There's never a bill that's perfect. They're just saying lies about it. They're making stuff up about it so they can justify not allowing us to make progress on a border that is killing people right now. You know what's in this bill, Joe, that they're voting down? A big section on fentanyl, allowing the Border Patrol to buy additional equipment that tracks fentanyl coming across, additional punishment for fentanyl trafficking. There is a huge part of this bill that addresses a killing agent in our country. And they say, no, we want Donald Trump to be able to campaign on it. So it's really bad. And I think it's great what Schumer's going to do today. He's going to call up the vote. We'll see how many of the Trumpers fold. We'll see how many stick with McConnell and Langford. And then right afterwards, he's going to call up the foreign aid bill, Israel and Ukraine, and he's going to call a vote on that without the border, because originally that's why they got hooked together. The Republicans wanted them hooked together. So let's see how many of them are going to vote for Putin today, too.
Carlos, you served with a lot of these men and women in the House. Be interested for your perspective on what's going on here. But this is, in many ways, almost the fantasy bill that conservatives have wanted on immigration for at least a generation. And you have, as Claire and Joe just said, Senator Langford, very conservative senator from Oklahoma, leading these negotiations for months and months and months, got the text written. And before it was even sent over to the House, you have the Speaker of the House, let alone all the individual members, saying it's dead on arrival. We want nothing to do with this. So take us inside this caucus, take us inside some of these rooms. Is this as obvious as it seems, which is Donald Trump is on the phone saying, you better not support this bill, even though it's the bill you've been asking for a generation?
Willie, catch and release. That's a phrase that you've heard conservatives complaining about for decades. It's related to our asylum laws, and our asylum laws are one of the big magnets for illegal immigration. This bill would reform those laws to make it harder for people to simply get admitted into the country. They would actually have to show that they have a legitimate and credible fear of persecution, and they would have to provide evidence. Couldn't just be their own personal testimony. So that is a massive change. That's something Republicans have been calling for decades, and Democrats have been fighting them on. But look, this isn't the first time, Willie, that Republicans would choose the politics of immigration over the solutions for immigration. But I think this time it might actually backfire. I mean, the American people are starting to learn more about this bill. They know there's a crisis at the border. I mean, to be fair, the Biden administration had been denying that for a long time. I mean, no one can deny that anymore. It is an emergency. There is a concrete solution, a good solution, frankly, a conservative solution on the table. And for Republicans to say, hey, Donald Trump told us we can't do this. We want to make sure we win the next election, so we're not going to pass good policy on purpose. I don't know if that's a tenable position. I think it is going to backfire as people learn more and more about this.
As Republicans continue to bow to the man with 91 counts against him, a federal appeals court denies Donald Trump's immunity claim, ruling the former president can stand trial over his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has the details.
Former President Donald Trump dubbed Citizen Trump by a 3-judge panel in Washington, ruling Mr. Trump is not immune from prosecution. The court saying we cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. The Trump campaign saying he'll appeal the decision. Trump himself bemoaning the ruling, saying a president of the United States must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what has to be done for the good of our country. Special counsel Jack Smith charged Mr. Trump last summer for his efforts to reverse the 2020 election results and stop the peaceful transfer of power.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Mr. Trump's legal team has been trying to get the charges tossed out for months, arguing he should be completely immune from prosecution for any acts he took as president. The court unpersuaded, saying we cannot accept former President Trump's claim that a president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would neutralize the most fundamental check on executive power, the recognition and implementation of election results. The Trump campaign capitalizing on the court's decision with a fundraising plea, as the Republican frontrunner frequently uses his legal setbacks as fuel for his latest White House bid.
If you have a president that doesn't have immunity, he's never going to be free to do anything because the opposing party will always indict him as soon as he leaves the White House.
With the ruling, Mr. Trump's only hope at avoiding trial is for the Supreme Court to find he is immune, which would have major implications in the other legal cases he faces as well.
Joining us now, NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman. Andrew, I guess he has until Monday to appeal. How do you think this plays out?
Well, the first thing I'd comment on is that we get so inured to the crazy. This is a 50-page decision that, with no sort of disrespect to these judges, says, guess what? Presidents can't commit crimes. The idea that we're all saying, oh, this is a really wonderful opinion. Of course it is, and it reaffirms what it means to be a nation of laws. But it's also obvious. No one has ever thought that there would be a president or former president who would take the position that they are free to commit crimes, and not just any crimes. These are crimes that fundamentally change what it means to be an elected official, where you're saying I can actually obstruct people's power to vote me out of office. So the court, of course, was right. And it presents a conundrum for the Supreme Court. There's no question that Donald Trump will try to get the Supreme Court to rule on this. And in many ways, you could imagine why the Supreme Court would want to affirm what the D.C. Circuit did, so they could say the law of the land from the Supreme Court, not just a court of appeals, is that, of course, Donald Trump is wrong. There's no way the Supreme Court would ever take this case and reverse the D.C. Circuit. The problem with them taking the case, of course, is that there's a time clock here. We're all entitled to a speedy trial. We, the people, are entitled to a speedy trial with respect to these charges. That is something that is statutorily given to the public, not just the government and the defense, but we have that right. And so if the Supreme Court were to take this case and stay Judge Chutkan scheduling a trial, they essentially could de facto be giving Donald Trump immunity because he wouldn't be tried on this case. So, I think that's the conundrum for them. My bet on that is that they will not issue a stay and they will allow Judge Chutkan to go forward with the trial. And she clearly is going to schedule a new date and go forward.
So, Andrew, within your answer that you just gave, there is, I think, in many people's minds, what's the difference between the law and common sense? I mean, you just outlined a pretty common sense response to the decision yesterday that the president or anybody really doesn't have immunity from walking out of his office and killing people and say, hey, no, I'm immune. And so what would the reaction be on a common sense level, do you think, instinctively, among the members of the Supreme Court?
So ideally, the law and common sense should be the same. You don't want a situation where the law is doing something that everyone goes, that makes absolutely no sense. I don't think that with respect to the Supreme Court that Donald Trump will find 5 votes, which is what he needs, 5 out of the 9, to say that the D.C. Circuit is wrong. There is no precedent at all. Everyone likes to talk about how Donald Trump is, and it's sort of an unprecedented person. But in this situation, in order to prevail, he needs to be able to rely on precedent. That is prior cases, prior law that would support his position. And here, this decision is really bulletproof. It goes through dispassionately, one by one, all of his arguments. Yes, it's something that I think anyone in grade school would come to the same obvious conclusion. Anyone who took a civics class would come to the same conclusion, but it does it in a polite, legal way, going through each argument and refuting each one one by one. So if this were anybody else, if it was any other defendant raising this, there's not a snowball's chance that the Supreme Court would take this case. It's such a frivolous argument to say that anyone can go ahead and kill people and not be subject to the criminal laws. And the court, by the way, refutes Donald Trump's claim that you just played, that, gee, any president would be deterred from taking tough positions, and says that's historically absolutely not true. There has been no presidential immunity, and guess what? Until Donald Trump, everyone's had no problem making tough decisions, and no one has been charged because no one has committed crimes like this.
So, Carlos, to sum this up, you've got more bad news for Donald Trump in the legal realm. I mean, every day something new happens, and these are 3-judge panels or juries of our peers, not the DOJ. And he's already been found to be a massive fraud, and yet Republicans still keep running around in circles for him and behaving destructively at his whim. What do you make of this?
Well, Mika, in terms of the ruling, it's good news, right? It means the United States isn't Cuba, it isn't Venezuela, it isn't Nicaragua. We have laws, we have the rule of law, we don't have strongmen, we have leaders, and those leaders are held accountable. Now, what it means for Republicans is that they don't really agree with that they want to reward this past behavior just because someone happens to be popular with a minority of the population. And at the end of the day, politically, it means there's a lot of risk here. I know Republicans feel good about the polls today, but think about that coalition that has come together 3 general elections in a row, 18, 20, 22, to oppose Donald Trump and his movement. That coalition is out there, and every day as we get closer to the election, that coalition is going to be reminded about who Donald Trump is, what he did, the damage he did to our country. So aside from the moral question here, there's also great political risk for Republicans in continuing to follow Donald Trump.
Former Congressman Carlos Curbelo, thank you very much. NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman, thank you as well. Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is 35 past the hour, a live look at the White House on a beautiful day in Washington. Wisconsin is a key battleground state, and right now a political fight has been raging over a Republican effort to prevent the state Supreme Court from having the final say in how legislative districts are drawn. It's just one of several battles that have a huge impact on our democracy and the way power is wielded by the party hoping to stay in power. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. He is chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, which brings legal challenges to gerrymandered redistricting maps for violations of the Voting Rights Act. He's been focusing on many of these showdowns. We just talked about Wisconsin, but you're also looking at Louisiana. Tell us about the situation there.
Well, in Louisiana, a bunch of citizens brought a lawsuit that we supported that challenged the way in which the districts were drawn there, that had a negative impact on the ability of the black residents in Louisiana to have the full degree of political power to which they were entitled, and which violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Based on the Allen versus Milligan case, an Alabama case that we won before the United States Supreme Court, a very conservative United States Supreme Court, we said that there's a basis to draw another black opportunity district in Louisiana. In the South, you have places where you have racially polarized voting. And as a result of the Allen versus Milligan case, the lawsuit that we have brought, another black opportunity district has been created in Louisiana as well as in Alabama.
So I want to get a sense of the importance of this work across the country, even the implications of the case you were just talking about. Could it impact how the states deal with this question across the country?
Yeah, I mean, the case that we won before the Supreme Court will have a nationwide impact and enhances the ability to use Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to go after states that are trying to dilute the power of citizens of color with regard to their representation. But we've also been bringing lawsuits on other bases in other parts of the country, in Wisconsin, Ohio, North Carolina. We brought a number of cases, all trying to make the system more fair. The reality is that gerrymandering is cheating. Partisan racial gerrymandering is cheating and deprives the American people of the ability to have representatives who really represent their policy desires. And, you know, it also, if you want to look at this immigration bill that is not going to get voted on, one of the reasons it's not going to get voted on is because people, Republicans in particular, fear primary challenges. And that's what gerrymandering does. It makes you safe in a general election, and the only thing you're really worried about is a primary challenge, and therefore you don't want to compromise with people across the aisle because that's seen as a sign of weakness, and that invites a primary challenge. So gerrymandering has an impact on a whole range of things, and that's why we have decided to fight for fairness in our redistricting process.
Mr. Attorney General, can you tell us a little bit more, if you will, about the ongoing impact that Donald Trump and his big lie has on this process, which, of course, has fueled voting rights changes in a number of states, restrictions, a number of Republican-held legislatures, and the idea that it's not just that what he did about 2020, but the fact that he is still out there, he's still pushing the big lie, and he's still the most dominant figure in Republican politics.
Yeah, and that's one of the really negative impacts of what the former president has done. By pushing this lie that we have a voting system that is unfair, that is somehow corrupt, it allows Republicans in state legislatures to put in place measures that are designed to keep certain people away from the polls. Restrictive measures like unnecessary photo ID laws, purging of voter rolls. There's a whole range of things that happen based on these misperceptions, these lies that are perpetrated by the former president. And that's why, you know, we have to fight for a fair system. It's what I've tried to do as the head of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, not to fight for partisan advantage, but for fairness in the electoral system. I think if that's the case, you know, Democrats, progressives, you know, will do just fine. But we face, you know, that headwind that comes from the former president and his acolytes saying that there is, in fact, voter fraud, when in fact, you know, the Brennan Center did a study and said you're more likely to be hit by lightning than cast an in-person, you know, fraudulent vote. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to push back against.
Eric, I really want you to address another thing that the former president has done, and that is delegitimize the Department of Justice and the FBI. I don't think people realize the percentage of people who work for the Department of Justice and who work for the FBI that are the very definition of non-political. I don't think people realize that the vast majority of those employees are people who came to those institutions because of the work they wanted to do without any kind of political pre-notion of how they could affect politics or policy. Could you speak to that and the damage he has done to these really important institutions in terms of the rule of law?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, you know, the notion that the Justice Department or the FBI are peopled with, you know, employees who have political leanings and who do things on the basis of political favor is totally inconsistent with how the Department of Justice is run, how the FBI is run. There is a way in which people in the department interact with one another where political things are not raised. I was a young lawyer in the Justice Department, you know, a long time ago, and a person who I tried my first case with and who I had a great relationship with, I just assumed was a Democrat. I just assumed he was a Democrat. And after getting to talk to him over the years, I realized that he was a pretty conservative Republican. I never understood that, never knew that. It is something that is not discussed in the Justice Department. The career employees, that's something people need to understand. These are career employees who serve for 15 and 20 years, do so in an apolitical way, don't do anything on the basis of politics. And the way in which the former president and too many Republicans have attacked those institutions has had a negative impact on their ability to do cases that are in the political sphere when they're doing political corruption cases, but also has a negative impact on the way in which juries look at people from the FBI when they are testifying in non-political cases. So there's a negative systemic impact, institutional impact, that these lies have had.